Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. It's good to see you. You've seen the title, so at this stage you know more about today's reading than I do, since I speak to you from the recent alternate past. This is a general, timeless one, ideally designed for quite a large audience, so we won't get as specific as we would in a private booking, link down below. If most of what I'm saying feels like an answer to a question you've been living, take those tidbits with you and let a fellow traveller excavate the rest. If it's not your reading, there are playlists on my channel hub to randomise finding something else. Whilst it's true that a broken clock is right twice a day, I'm not sure that same clock is right 10 times within the hour. So trust yourself, above all, to know what's useful for you and what makes you feel more empowered for hearing it, no matter what your beliefs. While we're on beliefs, on this channel gendered terms are just a specificity of language to describe energetic tendencies and signatures, solar or lunar inclination in accordance with a hermetic law of polarity, and not any kind of socialisation to buy into wholesale or conflate with the identity or orientation of anyone described. Romantic and spiritual labels used are plucked from lengthy precedent predating any unfortunate trending controversies or engineered cyclical backlash. My dude, around these parts, we don't relinquish the complexity of our full histories. We trust ourselves cognitively to adapt what we consume and see what's healthy and long-term accurate. I'm legally obliged to say this is entertainment in quote marks and that I'm an occultist not qualified in unrelated disciplines to advise on physical and mental health, finances, legalities. You get the picture, you're in charge of you. All my readings are protected and warded by frankly magnificent beneficial forces, though I don't share my custom prep rituals on camera any more than I give out my address. I hope the reasoning behind that is obvious, but you can trust there are zero parasitic or adversarial influences permitted within 100 unseen paces of any signal we patch from the noise here today. So sit back, relax into the shape of your most luminous possible future self, cozy up to imaginal allies, and take in whatever it is you need to hear. If you do like it, this small channel with a big mission very much appreciates subscriptions, thoughtful comments, or donations in order to spread the word and keep the lights on. Now, let's tune that dial. Right, well, I hope this one's for me too. You may have gathered from the fact that our chosen crystal today was my heart from a local cathedral that it may be a love reading, right? And I say may because I'm making these general for a large audience, as specified in the intro. So there will be a non-love interpretation, but this feels very love heavy as I'm looking at it. And it also feels very straightforward. So you may be watching this at a time where things feel easy or there's some fortuitousness in the air, or the kind of, I mean, I don't really know when I'm uploading this, but I'm filming it during eclipse season, and my feeling is that I'll upload sort of a month or so after that, and it'll be a time of great relief for the fact that that is done with for a bit. All of the you don't need to be, you know, down with space weather necessarily to enjoy this reading, but for those of you who are, all of the kind of tumultuousness of that seems to be dissipating finally, and I think that's why you're stumbling upon me and getting a reading. I also want to say angel numbers will come into this somehow. I'm going to tag 545 just because of something that I'm seeing as the kind of number thing to pull people into this particular one. I don't always do that. I don't always align with ideas about angel numbers, but sometimes they are really specific. And if you've been seeing 545 or indeed 555 and 444, this might be really significant for you in some way. So beginning with colour, we have the blue neon, which we've had before in these kind of new style readings. And what I want to say is that whilst the last iteration of blue neon was more about an urgency of dissent and self-examination and a spiritual urgency, this blue neon, being a neon, is still be not afraid and hark, we have news. But it's also, in this case, about the communication center, the throat chakra, if you're subscribed to that whole thing. What I want to say in this reading is that if you are a tarot reader, you will know from these cards pretty much what's happening anyway. but that the caveat is that it's on you. So let's get further into it. We've got Jupiter return, which you can't see because of Althea at the moment, so I'll just move her for a quick sec and then you get more of an idea. But isn't she lovely? Let's send her all the energy we have. It may be that she's covering him for a reason, actually. I think this is possibly a concealed return of somebody that you've been involved with or estranged from or at a distance from, or someone that you haven't seen or spoken to in a few days, if this is a new connection. If you are already coupled up or you're in a polycule or anything like that, this is kind of the return to form of somebody involved in that situation. But again, there will be a non-love interpretation. Please wait for it. I love you. So, Jupiter return. The number's 49. So that is what? That's a 13. Which comes again to a 4, and we've already got an Emperor here. So divine masculine is incredibly relevant to this reading, but also so is stability, so is getting grounded, getting on your feet, getting your material house in order. I'm also filming this on a day where I'm planning to do lots of spring cleaning and kind of tax adjustments and, you know, sort of formal official adulting type things before I really let it rip. For the rest of the foreseeable, right? And I think that this may also be the energy of you at the moment, whenever you're seeing it, that it's like, oh, I feel a bit lighter now, I feel a bit less pressured now, it's time to speak, right? We've got that blue neon, but it's also time to settle into the material in a more abundant, fortuitous, Zeus-like way. And I don't always like saying that because I'm not the biggest fan of Zeus, but you know, Jupiter Zeus energy is here. Also, again, the echoes of the blue in both of these sort of random cards that are exempt from the tarot. Now, Jupiter return. My maths is going to challenge me here, but this happens about every 12 years. So it would be particularly relevant for you to look at your own astrological chart if you are watching and you are 24, 36, I want to say 48. And upward and upward and upward from that in multiples of 12. I'm sorry, I can't do that in my head right now. I have cognitive fatigue post-stroke. I'm not the best at fast maths, but you do you. That may be relevant, and if you're not at any of those kind of 12 gap age cycles, something pertinent to this reading may be outside of that Jupiter return energy to just look at where you were at 12 years ago. If you're particularly young, I know that will make it a really young time to look at, but it's not necessarily in terms of your love life or whatever this reading relates to, so much as there is something from that year, from that time period, that will be pertinent to what I'm saying now, or a skill that you gained then that you can use now, or dare I say like a limiting belief or environment that is relevant to how you frame things now. So go 12 years back if you're not in that 12-year Jupiter return thing. Know also that Jupiter is about expansion. This can be travel, this can be opportunity, it can very often be to do with knowledge and philosophy and expanding the self and opening up to further ideas, right? Getting my bake on for some of you is very specifically to do with that, if you catch my drift. But it can also be expansion in things that we don't want. It can be things getting a little too big around us, things moving a little too fast. Perhaps the waistline is expanding, as happened with my friend's Jupiter return, which she was very miffed about. You know, all of these things kind of cycle back in time, but expansion itself is not a term. I mean, it's neutral, put it that way. I don't know whether you can hear the pigeons outside. I sort of hope you can. They're begging me for food because I haven't fed them yet, but there's something about that as well. There's like puffing your neck up and sort of strutting, and you know, there's a expansive is like, okay, well, let's not get too big, right? And it makes me think of, I hope I'm allowed to say this, but in my own twin flame dynamic, I have a thing for somebody who's been made fun of for their very large head and have made retorts in the past, warranted, about not letting that head get any bigger, etc. So there may be something in that for some of you, I don't know, but it's coming into my head. And again, it's like pigeon energy, big dick energy, strutting energy, kind of like, okay, we get it, right? It's a very Jupiter Zeus vibe. So something that's happening either from you or around you at the moment is in that, right? And this could be maybe even that comparative stability that you're feeling, in the sense that if things are a little bit more chilled out and a bit more number 4 than they have been in either eclipse season or whenever you've sort of been doing things before you see this, returning to a period where you feel a bit lucky, where you feel like opportunities are open to you, where you feel like your learning is very accelerated, that could be something that it's like, okay, but, you know, keep it... I'm hearing for spirit, keep it in your pants, but that's not going to apply to all of you. But there's a kind of, I want to describe it as Spanish buzz energy, if you're a Toy Story fan. There's just like a little bit of cockiness happening somewhere, and it's like, careful there, but it's not unappealing. And that's why it made me think of, you know, the twin flame journey. But it's just like, all right, okay, simmer down. I hope I'm allowed to say this on YouTube, but one of my friends from Tarn up north, her phrase is reel the knob in, lad, right? Wind it back in. And if you're American or anything, you don't understand me, just skip over that one. It's very British humour, but it's that energy, right? Okay. And then we've got this expansion, we've got a responsibility or an urgency of communication. Then we have from the love deck, but it's not always for love, we have I'm into you and I don't care who knows it, and let's start again. So this let's start again, like I say, this can be somebody who you're currently kind of estranged from, or it can be someone who you're very much in a thing with, but who just wants a freshness to it, again with the spring cleaning energy as well. Getting my bake on, baking can be a practical form of mindfulness. Collective groan when I hear that word, but it is useful. Make something delicious and share with friends, family, colleagues, or a neighbour. So this may be a literal thing of nourishing somebody else that you feel close to as a form of communication, or as a kind of setting of the table so that you're able to communicate with them. And as I'm saying that, I can't remember the song, but I'm seeing in my head from the Aries tour, the Taylor Swift thing. Sorry if you're not a fan, but I am a Swiftie. I'm seeing that set up where she's at a really, really long table with a very tasty man at one end and she's at the other. And then she ends up kind of dancing on the table and like throwing things off it in reaction to his neglectfulness, which is sort of expressed through the song. If you know the song, if you know what I'm on about, please comment down below, because I can't remember right now. The whole Aries thing, I've watched it a couple of times and it's all a blur for me, but it's that setting the table, it brought me back to that. So there may be something that you need to communicate that actually isn't positive, but the way to go about it is to set the table, set the environment, again, for energy, right? And potentially Jupiter energy, because it's a kind of expansive spread, it's a cornucopia. And you're putting that environment in place in a very stable, very material, maybe even materialistically sumptuous and seductive way, so that somebody is amenable to sitting down with you and listening to what you have to say finally. So if somebody does comment that song, and I love you if you have, thank you, the lyrics to it may be relevant as well in terms of the previous turmoil that we're talking about kind of surpassing and expanding ahead from. Hope any of that makes sense. There's also a prior reading where this Getting My Bake On came out. I can't remember the name of it, but I will find it and link it in either the comments or the description once this goes out, right? Because that may be relevant too. It's not often I pull the same This Day I Am card a couple of times in a short space. Then we've got a Seven of Pentacles in reverse. So a period of reflection that's kind of ended, or is having a pause, or life's having a pause for it, or something like that. Because it's a taking stock card, it's Thanksgiving, but it's like, wait, because it's in reverse, right? It's paying more attention to this energy is in retrograde, yeah? And I always go with the Caroline Casey thing of retrogrades are spend a deeper time with me, not, oh, it's this thing but backwards, you know what I mean? And then again, we have two people in dialogue, right? And in kind of golden hour lighting. So again, golden hour light to me, I'm sorry for the lack of focus on that, but I hope you did see it. Golden hour light to me speaks of a tailoring of environment, right? I always make sure that if I'm going for a walk, I try to time it to golden hour or blue hour, not just for security reasons as a woman, but also because that makes me feel a little bit more like I'm living in my dream universe, or I'm living out my dream life. And something I've been trying to do in my spiritual practice and just personally is to become a bit more of an aesthete with the things that I do, with the environment that I live in, with the people I surround myself with, in terms of their interests and all of that sort of stuff. And use the sensuousness that is available in daily life to feel richer and more fortuitous and more expansive, right? So this is golden hour being on this card in the way that the colours are portrayed. It's not just a coincidence that this is blue, but it's also sort of signifying that if you want to go into a period of reflection at the moment, the way to do that is to tailor your own environment and existence so that everything is just absolute chef's kiss, top tier, both so that you can go into reflective mode with a bit of ease and a bit of a safety net of, but look, the world is so beautiful. But also so that in this interaction between these two people, which we've spoken about with the setting of the table and with the communication that's necessary, we are putting that environment out there in its top quality possible, right? So this is, again, nod back to, if you're going to invite somebody over to tell them some news that is a bit mixed, do it at golden hour, or do it when the table is set beautifully with flowers, or, you know, it's that sort of an energy, whether or not any of that stuff appeals to you, whether you appeal to the visual senses or indeed have a visual sense, because some of you, you know, don't have that capacity, and that's fine too. But it, you know, whatever way it means to you, transfer that energy of, I'm making this space into a magical one. I'm designating this as a little bit like something that I wished I'd seen in a movie, so that you can kind of enchant whoever this reading is in reference to and make them more amenable to whatever it is that you have to say. And that's part of like why to say it now. Because again, with blue and blue hour, it's like golden hour happens, but then it's blue hour and then it's dark, right? You only have a short window, and that window, especially in the UK with BST, it changes, right? And it's difficult to track unless you have like a specific app or you're exceptionally good with an ephemeris or anything like that. So all of what I'm saying so far, and I know it's complicated and we haven't even gotten into tarot, but there seems to be a period of opportunity opening for you, whether it's a direct Jupiter return or whether it's just something carrying that kind of vibe. And within that, you're being told that there is an urgent need to communicate something to somebody, or to kind of speak your truth for the first time. If you've been having ear, nose, throat problems, or kind of difficulty speaking or anything like that, anything with the back of the neck in that area as well, that might be why, right? And with that, there is a need to set up an environment, set the table, get the bake on, whether or not you're a cooker or a baker or whatever, in order that a period of reflection taking place with another person can be something that they are open to and down for spending extended time with, instead of something that they have resistance to because of what needs to be said. Okay? And I hope that's kind of non-love enough in the introduction as well, because I think that could apply to someone that you needed to communicate to about something else, right? And we may see through these cards what that might be. But for those of you who didn't come for a love reading, it's very much like I need to say what needs to be said, and I need to do it now, because there is a window open of like, let's start again with this, let's get on the same page. And there's an energy from this person with, I'm into you and I don't care who knows it, that they are open to whatever it is that you have to express right now, and will kind of fight your corner if that's necessary. But that window may be one that not closes, but, you know, the curtains may shut as it grows dark, right? It's a kind of, it fades in and out of whether they're not whether they're open, but whether it's the best time. And for those of you who've been getting readings again and again and you're getting right timing stuff, this is your window, kid, right? Take it. Right timing, it's like doing the right thing at the right time. It's not waiting around for the universe to give you your manifestation at some point where some other superpower designates that it's correct. Sorry, Althea. It's instead saying this is the right time for you to do what you need to know, what you know you need to do for you to get your words in order, for instance. So there's something about that of like, hey, you know that thing that you've been putting off in terms of the self-work or in terms of what it is that you wanted to say and finding the right words and all of that? Well, you know, to quote Pulp Fiction, now's the fucking time. Okay, so why is this a love reading, right? Aside from the obvious. We got a 3 of Pence with a High Priestess. So someone is willing to cooperate in a way that they perhaps weren't before. And what has been secreted is going to be revealed. This also fits in with this very spring chicken energy that I'm having today of, you know, Persephone coming back up and the birth of spring and all of that kind of stuff in mythology. And particularly on this card within this deck, which I don't always use, you know, the pomegranate curtain is being pulled back. So, I mean, there may be something to do with that, depending on how connected you are with this person and what their, you know, situation is down there. Excuse me. Right, that was a notification on my phone, and I'm sorry if it deafened you, but it was to tell me to drink water, and I forgot that I'd set them and I needed to turn them off for this video. But just as I said about the pomegranate curtains being pulled back, there was then a massive wave sound. So I'm fairly sure that for some of you, I mean, there are 18 plus readings on this channel, but you won't need a further explanation on that, right? Jesus, could it get more literal? That was a little bit gross in some ways. Anyway, moving swiftly on, and I'm sorry if it did deafen you. Working together to reveal this, right? The curtain is being pulled back. We can see this vista. We don't always see that in different representations of the priestess. She's also looking very pensively at this flower that has died, which I think is kind of like looking back on maybe what was lost and saying, no, let's start again, right? It's the echo of this. So there is an opportunity, and again, it doesn't have to be love, but it's to discuss something with someone, sorry guys, who is now willing to cooperate, even if they're not kind of looking in the same direction as you, right? You're focused on this. You're perhaps building up your pentacles. You're getting more material or financial stability sorted out at this stage for you. And they are perhaps in more of a rumination energy, but it's time for both of you to come together and work out, okay, what is behind this veil of what was not communicated prior. The priestess can also be about opening up to your intuition and stuff like that, but I think specifically in this case it does resonate for being about secrets, and the fact that we had that drink water notification just there with such a watery noise makes me think of fixed water and Scorpio, and Scorpionic energy is very much about secrets kept and things selectively communicated in order to protect certain energies, right? The Scorpio gets a bad rep, and I really like Scorpios. There's a lot of sort of talk about how hypersexuality and vengeance and things like that are involved, and they can be, but really it's fixed, so it's the maintenance energy of the whole water thing. So they are capable of deep emotional depth and intuition in a way that maintains an equilibrium with those things. You know, they're not getting into the moon card, they're very steady. And at the same time, in order to sustain that and in order to keep an entire ocean a stable thing, there are very protective measures that have to be employed, and there are sometimes defences that have to be up, and there's potential possessiveness and things like that. But they're not inherently terrible energies by themselves. They're there to protect the kingdom that is water, right? So that's what I'm feeling from this High Priestess, is that oceanic protector energy that we have with Scorpio. where the sting in the tail is only really a threat in order to sustain and protect what is true and what is important and plutonic, again, with this underworld imagery. It's like there is unconscious, unspoken stuff happening here, and it always has been happening. But this person that we're referring to, in whatever capacity, has kind of been a guardian of it, right? Or they feel they have. They've been watching over it and tending to it. And it may be that that thing has died if it's a relationship or a particular idea you guys were working on at one point. But it's like now they're looking over at that, and it's your opportunity to say, hey, about that thing, I realise now that any secrets we kept from each other were actually with similar aims in mind, you know? Maybe things were left unspoken so that disruptive parties or influences or environments wouldn't get involved in whatever this is. And now is the time to turn to the daylight and turn to each other and kind of discuss how we're going to go forward together in a more open-hearted, expansive, Jupiterian kind of a way. So yes, this can be a return if you're in a separation. It can also be a collaborative work effort or something like that. But it's just an acknowledgement happening through your communication and through your setting the stage for this person. And they are very theatrical. I mean, look at this hat. Wow. But it's, you know, it's making the environment correct for negotiations to start up again, because it's fair that they do, right? Whatever it was that was lost that needs to be restarted, whatever it is that you both used to champion that perhaps you've gone your separate ways with, it's worth it. It's worth that collaboration and communication. And that's what you're urgently being told in a kind of angelic way, because it's a neon of like, whoa there, this is what needs to come through. Gabriel and his trumpet right here, right now, let's go. And if it was any other form of blue, or perhaps any other neon, that wouldn't be true of it. And then we've got the world with Two of Swords. I think there is hesitation on the part of you and or this person, potentially both is what I'm feeling, that all of this stuff you could have been working on, whether it's a relationship, a project, a family, you know, any of it, could be the world, particularly to the more scorpionic energy over here, the secret keeper, the guardian, if you like, who I think is very similar to this figure in the middle of the balance of the elements depicted, right? I'm noticing as well with this pattern going through them, what's that? It reminds me of like, it's a bit niche, but it reminds me of Canadian TV slogan designs from the 80s, or like the sort of stuff you'd see in like Videodrome, or maybe even like American and Canadian TV. Sorry to conflate the two places and peoples, but that sort of like naff 70s, like you get this stripy thing and then you get a logo and it maybe spirals onto the screen, and like a news channel type thing. And I just, at the time of filming, I came back from, what's it called? Come on. Late Night with the Devil, right? And do not be alarmed, right? It's just a horror movie. I'm a horror fan. It's fine. And that's a good description of the movie, actually. I thought it was fine, you know. Some exciting things, maybe not taken far enough. But the sort of mood of that was this 70s period piece that set up very well a kind of high concept thing which wouldn't be possible in any other time period, because you would either get people who were a bit cynical for it, or you would get a setup that wouldn't allow for it. It's like that story had to be told in this very Ghostwatch era kind of way, or well, pre-Ghostwatch, it was more 70s, but you know. So again, we're getting this reiterated theme, sorry if you didn't follow along with that, of things being at the right time or in the right environment. For some of you, this is so weird, but I shouldn't criticize it in that sense or even think of weird as a bad thing. But this person's scorpionic theatricality, they may be somebody, with me mentioning aestheticism and stuff, who likes to cultivate a certain environment or vibe that is very much to do with a certain time period, or that is like reminiscent of a certain movie or something like that. And it's like another nod to this of saying, when you're setting up this environment in which to speak to them, let that influence your decisions in that sort of satanic witch type way or complete witch type way. Where, I know that's a problematic book, but kind of tailoring colours and scents and sounds and whatever else to what this person already wants to live in, so that they're so kind of enthralled. Again, it's this like captivating energy, that they are more open to this, and that they remember as well that they thought the world of you. Because that's another thing, is that whatever private universe this person is making, and now I'm hearing the Crowded House song Private Universe, which may be relevant lyrically, there's some kind of thing where you belong in that to them. And I don't know whether you identify with it in the same way that they do, but it's almost like part of the way that they saw this thing happening, or the dreaminess of the future with you or in collaboration in some way, was to do with that time, and you fit so well into that thing and you are part of it. And it's like they've sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this person has made a world, right? For some of you, it's literal world building, it's writing and stuff. This could be a dungeon master for some of you, I don't know, but it's like they've created this environment, and they've cultivated this person that they want to be in this, not fantasy world, but this like world over a world layered that they want to live in. And the thing that's come out to them is belonging so perfectly in that they don't have to tweak anything, is actually you. And maybe if this is a love reading, that's part of how they knew that you were for them, right? Because something they were already striving for is just already your niche, or is something that you kind of plop into just very naturally, just very smoothly. It's like, I'm getting just someone like dropping flubber into water, and it's just like, boom, and it belongs there. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't get it across in a better way. I'm really sorry. There's not much air in this. That's probably why. But it's this thing of, even if it is a project, even if it is something kind of non-romantic, they saw you and they were like, oh, well, you're already a character in this, aren't you? It's beautiful. And I know that feeling, man, because like personal twin flame journey stuff, like when that person opened a door and I'd never seen them in person before that point, it was like the fucking Wizard of Oz, my dude. I wasn't even in Kansas, but I was in the sepia bit where the hut lands after the tornado, and then the door opens and you go into full technical abyss vision, and it was just like, blimey, you exist. Well, that makes everything a lot more vivid, you know what I mean? And I think if it is a love reading, that may be the feeling they've had with you. But if it isn't, it's this thing of, we were a really good team. We were a really good collaboration. We had great ideas. We had cool stuff to talk about, or we were the best of friends, or there's something about you fitting into their world in a way that's just natural. And it part of their grief over whatever this kind of dead plant thing is here is they don't understand how this can be so natural and yet not have come to fruition. So it's time to say, let's start again. I don't know how I got that from a will card, but I did, right? With Two of Swords, I was speaking earlier about the hesitancy involved, right? There's a resistance from both of you. And there's an indecision because you're both kind of going blind into this. Neither of you know what the other one is feeling or thinking, hence the secrecy, right? Hence the protectiveness, the scorpionic armour, the Garthim, if you like, of the reading. That's all well and good because it's dominated by this major arcana, and this one actually, of like, no, we know what we're talking about. This is a minor. This is a very day-to-day feeling. This is, I just don't know how we're going to do this. it's not the dominant rulership of the reading. And actually, you've got 4 majors here, and they're all speaking to the same thing. So these 2 minors are kind of, well, they're minor, you know? Okay, bringing us to justice with the Emperor. Whoever you identify in this as the divine masculine, and again, see my intro, but that doesn't have to refer to gender at all. It just is the kind of the party who generally takes control of the situation, or is more kind of the assertive one to the seductive, intuitive one, if you like, counterpart-wise. Very subtle energies, very subtle differences sometimes, but there will always be one leaning more one way, one leaning another way. But this person and justice are now going hand in hand. So, 2 ways to interpret based on whether this is you or not. If this is you, the urgency of this blue neon communication thing and the setup prior, which needs to be very careful, by the way, because seduction and enchantment is it's a fine art, right? Sometimes literally. But all of that is for the pursuit of justice. And the thing to remember, if this seems like an arduous process to set up before you expand into a new idea with someone, is that actually it is just for you to put this much energy into it. I don't know whether maybe if this is romantic, if there was like a lack of equilibrium beforehand, a lack of you giving to this in a way that was fair. And maybe that's part of your reflection to kind of come into that with this 7. But if that is the case, then what you can do to make up for that is to play into this world building of this other person, this magical vibe, this setting up of an enchanting environment, or a truth to purpose which they carry with them. I'm thinking of the kind of over theatrical Leonic splendiferousness of a film like Moulin Rouge, and specifically the line, "I only speak the truth," right? And I think it comes from Toulouse-Lautrec, doesn't it? Like, I haven't seen that film since I was a youngling, but if I'm right, then again, it's speaking to the arts, and it's speaking to a kind of Art Nouveau sensibility of flow and ease and lines that are wavy and naturalness and belonging. And there is a need to kind of just fit perfectly into something here as a way of enacting justice, because something has been perceived as unjust and it might be at your end, right? But the balance can be restored. We've got this kind of Libra and equilibrium energy. Also, if you are thinking of buying this person flowers, because we've got them a couple of times in this reading, and I am, spoilers, about to go into petals, irises would be a great choice. Or there is something about the song Iris, or the name Iris, or I don't even know whether these are irises, but they look like it to me. And they're lilac in colour, which might be a thing as well. If this is not you, if you are sort of looking for a reading about an emperor, you can probably guess what I'm going to say here, but justice is going to be done in terms of the emperor is the person who is traditionally more in control of the situation. They're the CEO, they're the boss bitch, they're the, I almost wanted to cross and spit when I said that. I hate hustle culture and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, they're very in charge of their own life. Whoever this person is, they have, they might be dominant, but they have dominion over their own environment, if not. And those 2 things don't need to be synonymous, right? We don't all want dominance, etc. But they have taken charge. They have agency, right? And they are going to use that agency to take control of the situation for justice and to say, let's start again. And hey, I may have been unfair here. Let's right this wrong. Or how can we balance this project, this goal, this relationship between the 2 of us in this Libran way that speaks to diplomacy and speaks to what we each can offer best, in a kind of complementary fashion, rather than like, oh, well, I want to do this, but you're all like this and that's different. You know what I mean? Like it's these component parts kind of flowing in a more natural, and again, it's very well expressed in Art Nouveau way. It's why I'm doing this with my hands. Although actually, I'm also doing an infinity sign, and I realise this now. So for some of you, this is like a forever person. congratulations, they're on the way back. But only if you communicate properly, and you may have to set it up, is my feeling. I was going to get more DIY love deck cards on this. I think I'm going to get one, and then we're going to go into my spicy extra thing of the reading, which today is going to be reading with rose petals. So quite fitting, right? But I didn't know it was going to be a love reading. That was the kit that I had to hand and the thing I fancied doing. So here we are. Run away with me. Wow. Okay, so part of this cultivation of a different environment may literally be that for some of you. Sometimes Two of Swords for me can speak about being trapped in place as well, right? There's stuff to do with the feet on the Smith-Waite version of the card and fixidity. And I mean, we've already got fixidity expressed here. For some, not for all of you, this person that you want this enhanced communication with is somebody who's been literally trapped in place. I want to say for a long period, like lockdown style, but it won't necessarily be that. Or indeed for most of their life. And again, I identify very hard with this because if one has physical differences, one doesn't get to do travel, right? One doesn't get to do holidays with friends, holidays with partners. Excuse me, that was my chair squeaking and not anything untoward. There's a sense here of somebody kind of being trapped in their own home. And I'm hearing that song, Whole of the Moon, which I don't think is broadly relevant, but it's that idea of you can be very scorpionic and intuitive and very in tune with the needs of your environment without really living it, without leaving it, whereas somebody else, the way that they live, may come to the same conclusions about the universe from this Jupiterian vibe of extended travel, lots of life experience. For some of you, lots of sexual partners. For some of you, lots of different kinds of work, right? I feel that whoever you're speaking to, whichever person you identify as being, has had less worldly Jupiterian opportunity than you have. And part of cultivating an environment for them that would make them conducive to whatever it is that you need to express is maybe taking a trip with them, or at least taking them somewhere that you suspect they haven't been, so that they can see things differently whilst remaining in the comfort zone of, yes, this too slots into my universe upon a universe, right? So if you want to reunite with somebody and the opportunity is becoming open and they're becoming more visible and you're thinking, is now the time? Something that might be good is to suggest that you take a little trip together, and it will be down to your situation, whether that's, hey, let's go on a date somewhere this other person hasn't been, or hey, let's go away for a week and just fuck off everyone else and talk about it, right? But you'll know what's appropriate for you and for the length of your connection. And I almost want to say, like, for every year that you've been around each other, maybe like a day. So like if this person is new to you, then this is just, hey, do you want to come to this environment that you haven't seen yet for like one occasion? But if you've known this person for like 20 years, then you may want to take like a couple of weeks away to actually talk it over and stuff. Now, if that doesn't fit, or this run away with me thing is not entirely appropriate to a literal trip, something else I'm getting is there is a sense of escapism, which I think has thwarted this connection or collaboration in some sense in the past. I think you may have had the feeling, or vice versa, that one or the other party was using the other as a way to escape some stuff that was going on with them. And that may have been interpreted as like a codependent thing, or a reliance, or a substitution of something that you feel that you can't live up to. But the guidance that I'm getting with that one is it was less about running away from and more about running away with. So I think that whoever that applies to, it's like they weren't trying to escape real life. All of this kind of fantasy dream world enchanting stuff isn't escapism, right? Because we're not getting cards for that. We're not even getting the vibe for that. It's instead this person already having a very sort of fluid, fantastical, enchanting approach, and you fitting very well into that. So of course they would want to make you a part of it, or indeed vice versa if you identify with being the person sort of escaping with, right? And that's not necessarily saying I want to abdicate from all responsibility and do this with you and fuck everyone else. It's saying, if I were to chase my dreams, I would do it with you. If I were to pursue this project, if I were to write this book with someone, if I were to make this art, if I were to go for this promotion, I would want to do it by your side, right? You see that difference? It doesn't mean that there's nothing for this person or for you to escape, but what it does mean is that if they're fantasizing about that escape already, of course you're in the picture. And I think that that's been interpreted in one or the other direction as running away from things and just carrying you along. But you're not riding shotgun in a kind of, oh, I happen to see so-and-so way. You're part of their final idea of themselves. Hope any of that makes sense. Let's get into petals, shall we? Okay, I'm going to save this other half for another time because I think I'll probably do this again. Right. Okay. Before we start moving them around, what am I saying? There needs to be a caution here between responsive and reactive. I'm doing this based on hemispheric balance, if anyone's curious, but there's a kind of thing here where you need to know that this is going to be a triggering conversation at both ends, right? Even if you have the perfect plan, there is something afoot. Actually, these petals aren't as dried as I thought they were, so there's a bit of a funny smell, right? It's just that sort of stale flower scent. Even though they have been in the sun, it's perhaps not for long enough, or perhaps not, you know, pressed beforehand or dried beforehand. A sort of pre-canning is what I want to say. And that's giving off this, like, you know, like the funny smell in Ted the Caver that, sorry with the horror references, but too much creepcast for me. But the funny smell in Ted the Caver where, like, that's how you know that something down there is not just rotten, but like approaching, because they didn't smell the smell before. It's that I'm getting off these flowers. So it's like, even this offering of flowers may be rotten. And I don't mean that this will be rejected or turned away or refuted, because you wouldn't be getting Jupiter and blue neon telling you to do it if it was going to be a no. But what I am saying, particularly with the tailor reference that we got earlier, is that this is going to be a really difficult chat, right? And no amount of pre-game or pre-prep or feeling that you're in a better place, a more stable place, the right place to have this conversation is actually going to reduce the trigger level for either of you. So what I want to say is, make sure that you are, rather than like planning what you're going to say in front of a mirror, what I want you to do instead is kind of plan what you're going to do in the moment if your trigger points come up, right? So if this person is not amenable, or they're very hurt, or it's been a long time, or they've somehow moved on with their life in some way, and something comes up that's not fully what you expected from creating this dreamlike scenario, what you're going to do in the moment to self-soothe and internally calm yourself down, you know, what mental techniques, what breathing techniques. These were yellow roses, so there's air energy coming in finally. So this is applying logic to the illogical or the emotional. And again, responsive versus reactive is happening. What else do I want to say? There's a lot of like unconscious stuff here going on for both of you. That is true of the scorpionic stuff that we got before, but I think it's important to say it now again. Okay, what else do you want to tell me, guys? There is love here. For those who are coming for a love reading, I'm seeing that kind of heart shape there. But it's a bit crumpled, right? It's a love that that perhaps dared not speak its name prior and is therefore, it's almost like somebody wrote it down so that they didn't have to speak it aloud, and it's there crumpled in their pocket. And it's something that they will affectionately pull out and look at, you know, like you would with a photograph, say, and they might even do that with your photo. Or you might do it with theirs, but it's that thing of like, I'm going to put this back in my pocket and no one will ever know, right? So if you did come for that, that's your confirmation that like, yeah, this was always here. This was always a thing. This was always deep love, but it's the kind of deep love that it's too risky to speak of. So you just kind of write it on a sheet of paper and you keep it to remember it, or you put it in a special box of special things, or you write it into a song or put it into a painting or whatever it is that you do. For many of you, you are quite creative people, as is this person. And I feel like this could be an indication that you've both stashed away this energy. You've both kept your secret somewhere in, what's the phrase? You're hiding it in plain sight. That's what I was trying to get at. So, you know, if this person's a musician, they will have written songs about this. If this person is a writer, it will be in their writing. You know, there's some kind of thing that I feel is, particularly because this is like up here as well, so it's quite public. There is a way that this person has expressed to you how they feel that actually has been expressed in public and interpreted as something entirely different. But you know the secret, and so do they. And actually there's this spoke coming out from this circle, which if it was an astrological wheel would be the 8th house. So again, Scorpio, Pluto, secrets, shared resources. But it's like keeping things on the down low, and it's right next to this space here, which would be the house of intimacy. So what am I trying to get at? Where there would have been connection here, you've both saved whatever it was that you took from this world that you built, you know, romantic or otherwise, and you stashed it somewhere else that's hidden in plain sight. You've put it in a secret box and then left that box on the table in the living room, and people walk past it every day and don't know the difference. And I think in some ways, for many of you, that's kind of the tragedy of this connection, is that everybody knows that you guys shared spaces, or everybody knows the name of the other person, you know, in both of your circles. But it's this kind of hidden thing still. It's like there's an open and public familiarity with each other, but a private awareness of what that familiarity means that is never fully being communicated. And it's choking me up, and it's making me go, that's why it's a neon. That's why it's urgent. Because it can't be private forever. And would you want to, you know, write the song, write the poem, put the thing in plain sight that is your respect for this person, and then know that that's going to be out there, but they'll never know that it was for them? That's the predicament you're being faced with in this reading. I'm sorry to put it like that. But there's a real risk here of, yes, this is going to be triggering. Yes, this is going to be difficult. There's going to be more of a cooperation energy than there was, but it's you know, you have to get over some hurdles together first. But the stakes here are massive, because it's like, how long do you want this to be your secret passion, or your secret project, or your secret wish for your career, or your secret love of your life? It's beautiful to express in some way how we care about people, but it's quite another thing to put that expression in such a way that you never have to tell them, because they don't ever feel the benefit of that energy in that case. And I'm telling myself off here while I tell you guys. God knows I've put mine into everything, right? Everything I am carries some of, P.S. I adore you. But it's time to come out of that mode of living now. And notice as well that these petals have formed a kind of, it's almost like a green man or something, but there's like eyes here, and then it almost looks like a mask, right? Take the mask off. Is there any extra advice or indication as to like how this is going to be received here? I'm being told to look at them just as they are with that bit subtracted. So there's something here about if you subtract the noise of other people, of the situation, of your environment, if you take away distraction, you come close to the truth of what this is, and that may be reassuring to you and give you strength in what needs to be communicated. Or indeed, if this is a project, it may be advice for taking that project further forward, that what needs to happen for this idea to flourish is a subtraction of all of the extraneous bullshit. And then it becomes really clear what it is. It's a different kind of animal then. We have this shared resources and we have a petal standing up here, you know, this kind of 8th house stuff. And then again, in this kind of wheel setup, over here, we've got all this friendship stuff going on, all this connection stuff going on. My feeling is that whatever situation you know this person from, like, you were deep friends. I don't say great friends, I say deep friends, because you may not even have had that much time to interact, or you may not have done typical friend stuff all the time or whatever. But it's almost like you know that this person would take a bullet for you and vice versa, regardless of that. And then other friendships that you've had for many years or childhood things or whatever don't necessarily have that depth. So pay attention to that. Subtract what isn't that in order to see that it is there. And that will give you strength. I've also just dropped a petal as I've been pointing at these. So that's telling me that some things will need to be released in order for this to move forward, right? You're going to lose some people on this. Perhaps part of the reason that you were keeping this person or this project secret, and part of the sort of protection energy around it, was that you knew that in order for it to come to full fruition and its best, highest possible purpose, if you like, you would need to lose some people, ideologically or literally, right? So that's coming through. And again, there's this friendship that's still there after that's lost. Maybe for some of you that if something ended on bad terms and there was like bad mouthing in either direction, like the people who received that interpretation of events may not stick around if you guys then come together in a stronger way, or they may not understand or support you. And my dude, from the energy that's coming off this thing, do you need anybody to support it? Do you need an adult to tell you, oh, this is okay now, you can live this? Or in fact, do you feel so strongly that it's part of your overall purpose that you can say even to your dearest friend or wisest mentor, yeah, fuck off around that thing though, because I'm doing it anyway. There's a release that needs to happen with that of like, I think you're waiting for somebody to approve of this, or you're framing whether or not to do it in the light of whether the people around you will approve. And I think that's going to be a no. But I think you and I both know that it needs to be done, right? And notice that there was resistance to the petals dropping over the Jupiter part when I dropped them again, right? They would fall everywhere else except this opportunity. I think there is a fear with you or this other person that this conversation will block further opportunity somehow, or that when one, when one closes, another opens. Is that the expression? And the closing off part is a little bit scary, but I think there's a saying where I come from, what's for you won't go by you, right? All of this communication right now that you're seeing is because this situation is for you. It's important. This is a way of the universe expressing that it's into you and doesn't care who knows it. So do you care who knows it? Do you care who's judging this situation, who's weighing in, who's saying, oh, but I thought you said this thing about that person? Or who's saying, I don't know, bro, it just doesn't seem like you. Are they really avenues of opportunity anymore over this bond, over this fantasy world, over this project, over this conversation? I think you need to get your priorities in order. And I'm not saying that in an accusatory way or anything like that, but I think maybe it's just been a very confusing environment to you. Again, with the petal stench, right? It's like there's something off in the local bit. In your cave where you've been, you can smell the thing. And it's kind of, we're not saying that all of those people and perspectives will be lost altogether. We're not saying that we're eradicating certain relationships from our lives, but we are saying that part of adulthood is knowing what is most appropriate for you as an individual and recognizing that some of those things will be things that nobody else agrees with. And you have to do them because they feel correct. I think that brings this to a close. I really hope it was useful. If it was, please like, subscribe, share me far and wide, because small channel with a big mission. I really, really need to spread the word on this, guys. This is my sole income. So if you want to book with me, great stuff. If you can't afford to at this time, then, you know, consider a donation at a later stage, link in the description, or just pass me on. That is the best way to help, right? Share, 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 and be a subscriber if you're not. And if you are, I love you and thank you. Wow. Honestly, this one's given me a lot to think about as well. But I hope that this conversation is everything that you hoped it would be, and that any fears that you have in the process of it are easily stepped over in the light of what's important. And indeed that you come into this new and expansive future and build new worlds with your collaborating friend. Take care.